Hello, and thank you for joining today's webinar, Parents as Partners, Improving Student Success Through the Migrant Education Program. This webinar was developed for the Office of Migrant Education by Escorts. Just a couple of housekeeping items. I have muted your phones to reduce background noise. Additionally, I would ask you to individually press *6 to mute your phones from your ends. If you have any questions during the webinar, please type them in the chat box, which will be monitored. We have also placed some helpful information in the notes box. If you experience technical difficulties during the webinar, please contact Bob Thomas at 1-800-451-8058. This slide explains that the external links, products, and materials referenced in this presentation are not vetted or endorsed by the United States Department of Education. Parent involvement is addressed in both Title I Part A and Title I Part C. This slide and the next are for your reference. They provide more specific information on the statutes pertaining to parent involvement and parent advisory councils. Parent involvement and parent leadership are core components to children's academic success. My name is Michelle Cheney, and I will be presenting today's webinar with the help of my colleagues Bob Thomas and Monica Ulowitz. Also joining us are members of the Office of Migrant Education who will take this opportunity to introduce themselves and say a few words. Folks from OME, you will need to press #6 to unmute your phones and *6 to mute again when you're finished. Thank you. Today, we'll focus on the following aspects of parent involvement. We want to think about a more comprehensive description or definition of parent involvement, gather new ideas and strategies for engaging parents and supporting them as they navigate our educational programs and systems, and look at what parents need from us to increase their capacity to support their children's education. A fundamental component of today's webinar is to take a closer look at what parent involvement is and be able to use some common language around parent involvement. We know that research shows there is a link between strong parent involvement and increased student achievement. Not only does parent involvement directly affect the academic performance of children, it also positively impacts children's self-esteem, their relationships with their parents, and their attitudes towards school. Increased parent involvement also has positive effects on the schools, the teachers, and the curriculum. Schools become more collaborative and caring while teachers better understand the children and families with whom they work, incorporating ways to view content through multiple lenses. You will now take part in a short poll. You will see a box pop up on your computer screen that lists a number of activities. Please mark all that you consider to be parent involvement activities. As we take a look at the results here, we see that this is a pretty savvy crowd. Most of you marked everything as some aspect of parent involvement. And we're going to take a look at that a little bit more closely. Monica, will you hide our poll? Traditionally, parent involvement is measured by attendance at meetings, conferences, and other school or program-based activities. We know that migrant parents face many challenges and barriers with being able to consistently participate in these types of activities that include conflicts with their work schedules, childcare issues, transportation, and other issues like language barriers. Let's look beyond the traditional parent involvement activities for a moment. Gerardo Lopez, who was a professor and the Associate Director for Research at the Loyola Institute for Quality and Equity in Education, has been working with migrant populations and looking at parent involvement for many years. He challenges the view of measuring parent involvement in traditional ways. He cites migrant families where the children were highly successful academically, and yet the parents did not participate in school-based activities. Dr. Lopez gathered information from a small group of migrant families in Texas through extensive interviews and observations. Albeit a small group of families, Dr. Lopez focused on figuring out what parents did to support the academic success of their children. He discovered some common characteristics which should now be considered when planning for parent involvement. Dr. Lopez found that the parents of these successful children saw themselves as very involved in their children's education. He notes that the parents showed the value of education through the medium of hard work. The parents continually stressed at home the importance of doing well in school. They took their children to work in the field so they know how intense the labor is and what's required. These parents did not view migrant labor as something negative. Rather, they celebrated their cultural capital, viewing and using it as a powerful tool to teach their children lessons. Lopez concludes that if these parents were to be seen through the traditional involvement lens, they would appear to be largely uninvolved in their children's education. Lopez urges educators to develop parent involvement programs that are more organic and sensitive to an expanded definition of involvement and to capitalize on the ways that parents are already involved in the educational lives of their children. The work of Dr. Lopez causes us to rethink and redefine parent involvement. Here he shares insights into how parents believe they are contributing to school success at home through nurturing their children, instilling cultural values, and talking with them about work and school. It is these intimate, in-the-home activities that we must start to think about when we think about parent involvement. The idea of parent involvement happening in the home is not necessarily a new idea for educators. The concept of parents as first teachers has been a thread of language and literacy development for many years. Now it's time to consider what parent involvement means specific to our migrant population. Rather than taking a deficit view of families who cannot or do not attend school functions and appear to be uninvolved by traditional standards, we need to focus on asset thinking. That is, draw on the knowledge, strengths, and gifts that already exist within these families. All families care about their children and are involved in their children's lives in some ways. This is what we want to start with and tap into more thoroughly. One revised definition of parent involvement by researchers Hara and Burke is families and communities who take an active role in creating a caring educational environment. This includes many levels of participation, which we will look at more in depth as we continue. Let me also add that researchers found for minority students aspects of parental involvement that are less visible, such as parenting style and the expectations that a parent has for their child's achievement, had a greater impact on positive student educational outcomes than some of the more visible aspects of parental involvement, such as attendance and participation at school functions. Given the information we just reviewed about parent involvement, what words would you now use to describe or define parent involvement? What do you think of when you hear parent involvement? Please type your answers into the chat room. And once you've done that, take a moment to reflect. What does this new expanded notion of parent involvement mean for your migrant education? I'll give everyone just a minute to go ahead and type some things into the chat room. Great, we have a couple of ideas coming in now, and feel free to keep those coming. Understanding the needs of the migrant families, being present in the lives of their children, two-way communication, parents as supporters and motivators, words like collaboration, support, communication, and expectations. Thank you for those. They're all encompassing, and we are going to actually talk about many of the things that you've put into the chat room. We will now take a closer look at parent involvement. We will specifically consider what migrant education programs can do to more fully engage parents in their children's education, keeping in mind that parent involvement happens at home as well as at the school and in the community. Parent involvement can be categorized into three different types. Those things that happen in the home, as Dr. Lopez discussed. Traditional activities like parent-teacher conferences and PTO meetings. And finally, those activities that involve community organizations and promote parents as educational partners and leaders. As we have learned, home-based behaviors are a significant aspect of parent involvement that educators can support and build on. Additionally, programs must begin by building on each family's cultural values, beliefs, and economic positions. Migrant education programs and staff can provide guidance and support to students and families about ways to engage in education at home. Listed here are some of the suggestions that come from a program called TIPS, Teacher Involved Parents in Schoolwork, and its interactive homework component. TIPS features homework assignments that require students to talk to someone at home about something interesting that they learned at school that day. TIPS helps solve some important problems with homework. It helps all families become involved, not just the few who know how to discuss math, science, or other subjects. TIPS makes homework the student's responsibility and does not ask parents to teach subjects or skills that they are not prepared to teach. TIPS asks students to share and enjoy their work, ideas, and progress with their families. And TIPS allows families to comment and request other information from teachers in a section for home-to-school communication. One science TIPS activity, for example, requires students to go home and look around with a family member for products derived from animals. The student and family member identify these products and discuss where they came from and how they are used. Guiding questions are provided like, what animal gave important food products to your home? Which animal gave important non-food products to your home? Then parents respond to the activity by answering yes or no to questions like, my child understood the homework and was able to discuss it. My child and I enjoyed the activity. This assignment helped me to know what my child is learning in science. As you can see, an activity such as this can be done in any language, completed in just a few minutes at a time that's convenient for the family, and doesn't require parents to be science experts. What this activity does do is involve the family member and the child in a fun learning activity that strengthens their bond and strengthens the bond that they have with the school. Let me share with you another example of supporting in-the-home activities. I have the pleasure of working with the Maine Migrant Education Program, and this example comes from their program. They have created a project called Comienza en Casa, It Starts at Home. Comienza en Casa is designed to address kindergarten readiness skills, while at the same time teaching parents about early childhood development. The Migrant Education Program tutors and the Comienza en Casa curriculum empower parents to support their children's language, literacy, science, math, and technology skills and growth. Comienza en Casa strongly supports in-the-home activities by providing families with the knowledge, skills, and tools they need to make a difference in their children's education. Each of the families that participates in Comienza en Casa receives an already loaded and ready-to-go iPad to use as they work through the following components. Reading, which is done both in fiction and nonfiction through ebook apps. A Play and Explore component where educational game apps are used. A Create component with fun apps like Doodlecast. Off-screen activities, which are important as well. And lastly, there are opportunities for parents to enhance their knowledge of the concepts and skills being taught through mini workshops. Tutor advocates model, train, and support parents and students in the program in a variety of ways. Parents are provided with an activities chart. They receive training and ongoing support on how to use the apps and conduct the activities through home visits. Additionally, the activities are organized in a way that allows for families to make choices based on their interests and preferences. Families also set goals with the tutor advocates that take into account their schedules and available times. Please take a moment now to stop and do a personal reflection. Think about what your program is already doing to support parents as first teachers in those in-the-home activities. Also consider any new ideas from today's webinar so far that you would like to share with your staff. This personal reflection time is intended to give you a moment to process the information and make some personal program connections. So just think to yourself and maybe jot some notes down. There is no need to put your thoughts into the chat room unless you want to. We're going to take just about 15 seconds for you to think about what we've said so far about in-home activities. I would also love to hear more about what folks are doing, so feel free to email me about engaging in innovative parent involvement projects that you have going on in your states. Let's now take a look at what migrant programs and staff might be able to do to increase parent participation in traditional school or program-based type activities. Teacher conferences, meetings, and school events are also an important part of parental involvement that migrant families may find challenging to participate in for a variety of reasons. Those usual suspects, as we know, include language barriers, transportation, work schedules, and several others. But we must also consider that parents can experience confusion and frustration because they don't fully understand the purpose of the events, how they work, or what their roles would be. These feelings and ambiguities add to the already complex process of engaging parents. And it's those that we're going to take a closer look at. Research has shown that culturally sensitive outreach efforts and effective communication with parents are the foundation for successful parent involvement for marginalized groups, and that's according to Dr. Lopez. Cultural brokers can be used here. Cultural brokers are people who understand both the educational system and its expectations, as well as the cultures of those whom we serve, including the challenges of mobility. Outreach, communication, and relationship building between educational entities and parents can take place through these cultural brokers. Cultural brokers are particularly successful in engaging parents in traditional school or program-based activities because they can explain expectations, accompany parents to help with role identification, and assist in navigating the parent-teacher conference, the meeting, or the activity. Cultural brokers also can mitigate the fear many parents have when expected to participate in traditional activities by serving as school or program friends. Parents don't feel as if they're in it alone with cultural brokers. They have someone to reach out to for help. Cultural brokers are effective at negotiating change and creating more collaborative environments. Many of your migrant staff members may already be performing some of the duties of a cultural broker and without even knowing it. Providing your staff with information and training on being a cultural broker, in addition to determining concrete cultural broker responsibilities, will increase their knowledge and effectiveness in this role. Take a moment to think about who your cultural brokers are and what they do. Given the successes and challenges of your migrant parents, what roles might cultural brokers need to play to bridge that homeschool connection? And again, it's a personal reflection, so take a few seconds to think about it, but feel free to add to the chat room if you like. Great, we have parents as models and mentors, absolutely. And I see more comments are coming in, so I'm just giving a minute here to process. There's confirmation that the recruiters also serve as cultural brokers many times because they speak the language and understand the culture. Let me add to what we're talking about here in terms of cultural brokers by introducing the notion of universal design. In addition to using cultural brokers, migrant programs can design and assist schools in designing parent activities that parents can meaningfully participate in by using the principles of universal design. Universal design is an instructional approach where lessons and activities are created to meet the multiple needs of the students and address the wide variety of student learning styles. This means there's not a one-size-fits-all approach. In the classroom, it means that one worksheet isn't used for the whole class, or moreover, it means that, for example, an English learner in the classroom doesn't get the worksheet simply translated into another language. What it does mean is that we design the activities thinking about those whom we serve. Examples include using trade books, for example, on the lifestyle of a butterfly, but written at many different reading levels, or creating different learning centers for different groups of children in the classroom, providing multiple means for accessing information, written, oral, use of videos, demonstration, and hands-on, and of course allowing for student choice. If we apply these same principles to parent meetings, we can increase attendance and participation. Rather than simply supplying a translator for an existing meeting, we need to specifically design meetings for our migrant parents, taking into account their background knowledge on a particular topic or school procedure, their language and literacy levels in English and their native languages, locations that are easily accessible for them, and a host of other factors. The big ideas with universal design is that rather than trying to modify or retrofit an existing meeting, we are designing from the start specifically for the audience to be addressed. These are the three core strands to consider when applying universal design principles. What are we learning? How do we express our ideas? And why is this important or motivating to me? Teachers must present information multiple times through multiple means. They must allow students to express what they know in different ways. and the task must be interesting and motivating to them. We must do the same for our migrant parents. When we think about applying the universal design principles to traditional migrant education activities like parent meetings, we should consider: what is the parent's background knowledge of the specific topic to be addressed? Will we need pictures, charts, videos, a demonstration, or some other concrete way to present information? How many ways do we need to present the information? Perhaps we'll show a video and hand out a picture chart showing the steps of the process. Next, we must consider: how will parents be able to share their questions and ideas? They may not be comfortable expressing themselves in front of a large group. How will we facilitate small group and one-on-one conversations so that everyone has a voice and gives feedback? Finally, how is this meeting relevant to the parents? What will happen at the meeting that engages, excites, and moves them so they will want to participate again? And do they leave with the ability to immediately use or apply the new information in some way? Let's come back to our Comienza en Casa example from Maine. We learned before that there are numerous in-the-home activities that take place, but there are also more traditional group parent meetings that happen once a month for 3 months with each unit. And the parents come. These meetings are well attended and successful, and we think that because organizers attend to the migrant barriers like schedules, transportation, and childcare. Meetings are small, made up of no more than 6 families. Keeping the meetings small helps with planning and scheduling, but allows for a very intimate and personal meeting as well. The parents are provided with iPads and get hands-on individual help as needed. What the parents are learning at these meetings is highly relevant and motivating because it's directly linked to what they will be doing in their homes with their children. Finally, the same families participate in more than one unit, so they get to know each other over time and develop a camaraderie. Comienza en Casa parent meetings address the 3 principles of universal design. Information and content are presented different ways through the use of the iPads, demonstrations, and handouts, which can be color-coded and easy to read because they contain graphics and are language reduced but information rich. The parents can express themselves in English or Spanish with the whole group, small group, or individually with multiple facilitators. They can also show a facilitator where they don't understand or what they need help with by showing them the iPad and what they're looking at. Lastly, parents are learning skills and information that directly benefit their children and that they can immediately use when they get home. It also helps that the meeting is hands-on and fun. Let's stop for a moment and reflect on universal design. Think about professional development and training that you've participated in. What made it interesting, engaging, and useful? What draws you to a particular trainer that you look for at a national conference or convention? And how can we incorporate the components of universal design into our meetings? So once again, take a few minutes just to reflect on universal design in your own experiences. And feel free to comment in the chat room. Thank you, Jennifer. Additional activities include those hands-on activities, case scenarios, and role-playing. We see that multiple folks are typing, storytelling, important to encourage people to step outside their comfort zones and safely support them and provide a supportive environment, small group discussion, and time for folks to process. Thank you for your contributions. The last level of parent involvement we're going to explore today encompasses home and school parent involvement, as we've just seen, but then expands those ideas. This next model includes family, school, and community partnerships and collaboration. Researcher and practitioner Joyce Epstein outlines a parent involvement model comprised of 6 components that we're going to look at here. The first one, parenting. How can we help our families establish home environments to support their children as students? Suggestions include making home visits, showing videos, and using computerized phone messages to convey information on topics such as school or program-specific information, age-appropriate skill building, and things like health, nutrition, and community resources. The next piece is communicating. It has to be multi-directional, not just a school or a program sending information to parents. Something like making a call to parents in a language they can understand, informing them that Monday the school will be celebrating Dr. Seuss's birthday and first graders can wear pajamas that day, is a communication vehicle that can help engage parents and children more in those day-to-day activities. With that phone call, parents can ask questions or express concerns that lead to larger conversations and actions. For example, who is Dr. Seuss? The Migrant Education Program or a teacher might be able to additionally provide a Dr. Seuss book to the family. Or the parent might say, I'm not sure about sending my child to school in his pajamas. And that might spark us to think, does the child need a pair of pajamas that could be secured or donated? Cultural liaisons are great resources for helping this two-way communication. Volunteering is the next key component of involvement. And we know, of course, that migrant families work hard and have many barriers to participating in traditional school events, but they do possess great knowledge and talents. We can work to identify those talents with parents and see how they can best be utilized. Perhaps a parent can teach his daughter's class a song in Spanish, either by going to the school and visiting the classroom, or by recording it at home using someone's smartphone or computer, and then sending it back into school. Next, we have learning at home, which we've already talked a great deal about. This entails providing information to families about how to help students with homework and other curriculum-related activities. Parents may not be able to always assist with a specific math worksheet, but they can provide guidance on how to look it over when the student is finished, how to ask him what he did, what he understood, and what is still unclear. The parent can then encourage his child to go back to the teacher at school with those ideas and questions. Checking in and guiding learning isn't limited to checking worksheet answers. Next, we see decision-making, which involves including parents in program and school decisions and developing parent leaders and representatives. Here's a personal anecdote that made me stop and think, and this happened just yesterday. My daughter's school district sent an email requesting parent feedback on when to make up the excessive snow days that have been used but were not built into the school calendar. And I thought, well, how can parents who don't have email provide input and be decision makers, as the outcome of this decision affects them equally? Finally, involvement needs to include collaborating with the community, not only coordinating resources for migrant families like health and dental services, but also determining what our migrant families are and can contribute to the community to really be more fully integrated. I'd like to come back to Comienza en Casa one last time as an example of integrating different components of parent involvement. It is comprised of in-the-home activities and more traditional type group meetings, but there is now the involvement of a kindergarten teacher in this project. She attends the parent meetings for the Comienza en Casa training and has added to the meetings her knowledge, resources, thus enhancing those meetings. Additionally, parents get to meet and know her before their children are in kindergarten. The networking, rapport building, and exchange of information is invaluable. Several aspects of parent involvement have been reviewed today. It is a complex concept affecting many stakeholders. One way to ensure that the numerous facets of parent involvement are addressed and program priorities are met is to develop a parent involvement implementation plan. These 5 steps illustrate how a designated team can come together to review what needs to be done and the resources available, determine a focus area and starting points, develop long-term and short-term goals and action plans, and use a continuous improvement model such as a plan, do, check, act cycle to ensure the success of the parent involvement efforts. And as you consider your parent involvement plan, I thought MAP's Family Connections Continuum might be helpful. What is important here is the distinction between involvement, engagement, and empowerment. We want families involved in their children's academic success, both in the home, at school, and in the community. We want the parents engaged in program decision making, and we want the parents empowered to be leaders in their communities. So you will now see a poll with Epstein's 6 categories for parent involvement. Mark one of the areas that you are currently working on, expanding, or refining. I see a few more results still coming in, but as we take a look at these, of course, each program is working on something a little bit different. Many of you working on creating that two-way communication, home, school, school, home. Additionally, it looks like the learning at home activities and involving parents in academic success is a priority. And finally, collaborating with the community looks like the third choice here, what ranks number 3. Thank you, Monica. If we could just close that poll. Now, I'm going to ask you to take a look at those 6 categories again and mark areas that you would like more information on. This will help us to provide follow-up and potentially future webinars and other trainings. You may mark as many as you like. All right, we've got some big contenders here. It looks like, again, creating that two-way communication is a request, including families in the decision-making process, collaborating with the community, and the learning at home activities are the top 4. So thank you for sharing those. Up to this point, we've discussed what schools and programs like the Migrant Program can do to increase parent involvement. Now we're going to take a brief look at what motivates parents and how that affects what we do. Researchers suggest that parent involvement is motivated by 2 belief systems: role construction for involvement and sense of efficacy for helping the child succeed in school. Additionally, invitations are key motivators of parents' decisions to become involved. And invitations start at the door of a school or facility where immediately parents must feel welcome. Let's take a look at each one of these in a little bit more detail. Role construction means that parents have to know what their roles are in their children's education. They have to know what they can do and are expected to do to help their children succeed in school. Role construction changes based on social conditions. That means as children grow up and move up in grade levels, it also changes from one culture to another. A parent's role in his child's education in Mexico may be different from his role in the United States. In addition to role construction, parents have to have a sense of efficacy for helping their children succeed in school. They have to believe they are capable of helping and will have an impact on their children's education and the outcomes. These two factors can positively be influenced by family, school, and community. By providing parents with information and guidance on what they can do and how they can do it, we can help them construct their involvement roles and increase their sense of efficacy for helping children succeed in school. Here's an example of how MEP can contribute to building these two parent belief systems. Let's say, for example, we host a parent gathering that includes information on bullying. For those parents who couldn't attend, advocates take the information to the parents in their homes and discuss it with them. These materials strongly encourage parents to contact the school or teacher if they believe their child's being bullied. Next month, we provide parents with a quarterly newsletter with information and strategies on how to talk about school with their kids. Tutors and advocates review this with parents when they're in the homes. One strategy, which can be done in any language, is parents using sentence starters with their kids to generate conversations. Examples of sentence starters include, "The best thing that happened to me at school today was," and of course the children finish it, or, "The worst thing that happened to me at school today was." Several months later, a migrant mother asks her high school daughter what the best and worst parts of her school day were. The daughter excitedly shares that the science teacher commended her for her creativity in class. Then the girl shares that other girls pushed and teased her in the bathroom. Her notebooks and papers fell all over the floor. By the time the mean girls left and she picked up her things, she was late for class and got punished. Not only does this mother immediately remember the information on bullying, but she has also developed the sense that she is allowed, expected, and empowered to contact someone if she has concerns. She knows it's her role and her right to make a call to look into this. She immediately reaches out to the migrant tutor or advocate whom she knows well and trusts to talk to about the issue. Parents also need to feel welcome and be invited to participate in their children's education. Those invitations should come both from the school or program staff and the children. They can include traditional invitations to school events, but they must also include invitations to in-the-home activities. For example, teachers or tutors might have their students create an activity where parents are invited to share what their favorite meal is and the foods used in preparing that meal. The parents would share that with the children one evening at home, and it just takes a few minutes. The next day at school, the kids use that information in a food groups and nutrition lesson they are doing. Invitations offer an effective starting point for building that homeschool connection and creating the two-way communication. A lot of information has been reviewed and discussed today. Let's take a few minutes to summarize key points. We know that parent involvement is not something that takes place only in the schools. What can Migrant Education Program staff do with parents in the home to evolve and empower them to be more knowledgeable and active in their child's education? How will you capture and be able to tell the story of those in-the-home parent involvement activities? Although we know parent involvement extends beyond the conferences and the meetings, we do want to engage and empower parents to participate in those activities as well. Who are your cultural brokers and what roles can they play? How might you use the principles of universal design to enhance program and school-based activities, thus increasing parent participation? Parent involvement can specifically and strategically be built by having a plan and engaging key stakeholders in carrying out that plan. What is the state's comprehensive parent involvement plan? How has it been shared with all key stakeholders? What aspects of it are working well and which pieces need to be improved? As we come to a close, I'd like to leave you with this parting thought. Each of our parents and families has its own funds of knowledge, those skills, beliefs, and practices that allow them to function from day to day, go to work, go to school, laugh, or cry. It is knowing and starting from a family's funds of knowledge that will help us to better help them. The integration of these local funds of knowledge and education forges strong links between parents, educators, and children, and the validation of this knowledge allows families to bring more to their children's education. Thank you for joining today's webinar. We can now take a few questions. Please type your question in the chat box. If your question is not answered today, we will follow up with you. As you're sending in your questions, I will turn this over to OME for final thoughts. And to unmute your phone, #6. Hello? Yep, we can. So I see some initial questions. Will these materials be available later for states to use? And I believe that they will be posted on the results website. Can someone confirm that's correct? Yep. Thanks, Kim. Looks like a couple of other questions are coming in. Thank you. I think in Migrant we know that our families come with a wealth of skills and information, but because it doesn't always match what school expectations are, I think that's where we run into problems sometimes. It looked like a couple of people were typing questions, but I don't see that anything has popped up. And so I appreciate everyone's attendance today, and I will hang on the line a few more minutes in case people have questions they want to ask. You can unmute your phones with #6. Otherwise, thank you, everyone. You're welcome. Bye-bye.